Hello. 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 Welcome to our DM deep dive for D&D in a Castle. And I'm here with Alcuin Gersh, one of our legendary dungeon masters for D&D in a Castle. Hello and welcome, Alcuin.
Hi, I'm very excited to be here.
And for everybody who's watching, that's how you say it, Alcuin, in case anyone was wondering. I've come across that a few times where I've only seen a name written down and I go to say it out loud and I'm like, oh, I really have no idea. So that's for everyone's benefit. This is Alcuin. So Alcuin, you are coming back to D&D in a Castle very soon. Yes?
Yes.
You're coming back for November 4th to 8th, an almost sold out round. I think there's just like a handful, 2 or 3 spots left in that whole event. So that's very exciting. What are you looking forward to about coming back to D&D in a Castle?
This is my second time doing the hardcore mode, which is one of our newer modes. And I did the second one ever, I think, earlier this year. And I love the format. I think it's really great. I've been doing D&D in a Castle with you since 2019. And, you know, I always like to challenge myself and make the games even bigger and more memorable. And the hardcore mode is kind of become my go-to for that.
Yeah, I think you're very suited to that. The epic, the over the top, the intense, the throw everything at it with a lot of gusto. That seems to suit you very well. So tell us what you're planning for this round. This is November 4th to 8th at Lumley Castle in the UK for those watching, and hardcore mode for those who aren't familiar with this gaming mode. At D&D in a Castle, normally you play 8 hours a day for the 3 main gaming days of the event. With hardcore mode, you play 12 hours a day.
And 12 plus. You 12 can play
plus,
more than 12.
minimum. These are minimums. These are the guaranteed numbers. But also you get a little bit extra. The games is kind of an opportunity to sort of push the boundaries of what D&D can be. So what have you got planned for your hardcore mode campaign this coming fall?
Always with these hardcore modes, the amount of time you're spending at the table and the caliber of the player you're usually getting. A lot of them are DMs themselves. Although I've had someone who are first-time players or people who haven't played in person before. But it's kind of your chance, I think, with something that scale to offload a lot of or maybe collaborate is a better word, collaborate more with the players so that each of the players themselves, you know, they're controlling multiple characters. That's something I did for the first time in my spring hardcore mode. And this time I have them controlling even more characters. Instead of just making a single character, they're co-designing. They're each designing a different giant with me. So if there are 6 players, there'll be 6 different giants, which is great because that covers the basic ones that are in the monster manual, the different types within the ordning. But they're all co-designing one of those giants with me, and those are giants who went through the adventure Storm King's Thunder. So all of my players are going to be able to use Storm King's Thunder as background. And the way I handle inspiration and a lot of the resource management in my games is kind of like an ability for the players to call scenes. So they will actually be able to improvise flashbacks that occurred with those giant characters of how they got to this point. But the adventure in Doom's Wake is kind of like a cursed sequel to Storm King's Thunder, in that these giants succeeded in stopping the machinations of this ancient blue dragon who was part of this conspiracy, but she cursed them in the process. So each of the first 6 sessions is dedicated to a specific giant facing a doom that they can't escape, that removes them from the narrative. But each player, in addition to collaborating on designing these giant characters, has made an entourage for those giant characters, which are their PCs. So they have a budget of levels they can spend with a maximum of 6 and a minimum of 3. So they're going to have between 2 and 3 characters in a roster that are sort of the support characters for this giant. And some of them may have been on the previous adventure with them, and some of them may have arrived since. A significant amount of time has passed since the events of Storm King's Thunder. But yeah, in each of these chapters, which the players are kind of, in a way, kind of co-DMs for their chapter, it's about kind of dealing with loss, you know, and this kind of Shakespearean tragedy or, you know, sort of Greek tragedy, fatal flaw, that the time to pay the consequences for each of these giants comes up. But then when they leave the narrative, most likely through death.
Mhm.
They have legendary arms and armor, which they pass down to their entourage. So in each chapter, yeah. So it's the sort of support characters that eventually have to step up, because by the 7th session, it's just the squires and the handmaidens and the servants and the water carriers, and those have all been designed by the players, with backstories that are interconnected and connected to the giant whose entourage they're a part of. But it's not that you get higher and higher level and then you eventually go face the last boss. It's like your mentors and these supernatural, larger than life heroes fall away from the fight, are lost in this quest. And then it's kind of like the Fellowship of the Ring or something, where only the most humble of the small folk,
right,
can carry
are gonna
the line.
Yeah. So it sounds like this is a quite an involved sort of prep for this game for the players, which I have to say the players love. Like, I know our guests they're committed. It's a committed kind of player that comes to D&D Castle, whether they're new, whether they're early vintage, been away from it for a while. If they come to D&D Castle, they're there for the D&D, and they're there for it. And so that's really exciting. So you must be working with them a lot now, at this point, even now. So if anybody was jumping into this adventure at this point, they'd be hitting the ground running.
Yeah, for sure. We've already started, sharing a lot of the ideas. People are already claiming different giants in the chat. We have a chat that's the D&D in the Castle chat. And people have already approached me with ideas that kind of go outside my original imagined parameters for the brief. And I love it. I always want to yes and all that stuff. We may not get a representation of each of the 6 giant types in the ordaining, because a player could come along and say, oh, I've got this cool idea for, something. And we just run with it. But yeah, they're already storytelling. For my last hardcore mode, that prep was very useful because they were having to build a lot of relationship maps, because each player had 2 characters on opposite sides of a kind of East-West Berlin situation, with a lot of supernatural bad stuff in the middle. But this time, I think I'm actually going to encourage them, although they'll all be collaborating with me and be able to bounce ideas off of each other. I'm kind of encouraging them to hold more back this time, to actually be revealed at the castle. Ooh. So there's a certain amount of the prep that's shared, but since these other players are kind of co-DMs and the most reliable narrators when it comes to what canonically happened, to their characters, I think it'll be fun for them. Because, a lot of the players I have are DMs themselves. This is kind of their treat to themselves, is I'm the DM in my home game, and now I get to go be a player. And I don't mean to disappoint anyone, but I'm going to make them DM again along with me, because it's interesting. You have to, when that this super important character is going to, die or somehow leave the narrative, that kind of acceptance of it, it's a lot easier if you are a kind of co-storyteller, and less
less something happening to you and something that's
and I feel like even in general for other games that I've run, player death is a really big thing. Like, you need it to have stakes, but you also, it feels bad when you have a character that you put this much energy into.
Yeah. And
often I think, Dungeons and Dragons has this kind of expectation of success of, we're going to ultimately succeed. But most of my games are very about succeeding at a cost. If there's definitely a possibility of victory, but it's going to be bittersweet no matter what, So a lot of the emotional depth and reactions and these moments of intense role playing that the characters have for each other, where they're kind of pulling up their unresolved baggage of, I can't believe you did this, so-and-so would be alive if you had done this, like those kind of intense moments. It really gives the players a lot of agency to get there very quickly and feel like that they have the authority to do that, so it's going to be a very fun hardcore mode in that respect. Yeah,
it's going to be a lot of fun. As a DM, what would you say is kind of typical of your style of DMing in terms of the actual gameplay once you get into it?
whether it's one of my original settings and worlds, or something that is like this in a setting that the players may know really well, in this case the Forgotten Realms, there's always a big focus on having a kind of social reality to it, of having like different factions and politics, and having the world really feel alive, that nothing's kind of off the table. People can kind of go anywhere or do anything. It can be difficult to get a really epic story to, because it could be like herding cats, and you don't want to railroad people. So you have to have whatever is the most significant to the players be the primary plot and the primary driver of the conflict. So yeah, a lot of my games are very focused on this sort of dialogue and storytelling between DM and player, And
Yeah,
they're always dark.
They're always going to be dark. They're always going to be epic. Yeah, there's always going to be sort of, something really grand about your games, is the sense that I get. What did you learn? I would ask you, this is your second time doing hardcore mode. Mm-hmm. You're the first of our DMs, other than Mike Tinney, who sort of helped us create hardcore mode, to be doing it for a second time. Yeah. What did you learn running it for the first time that you think you'll implement this time around?
Well, I mean, a lot of things were suspicions that I had based on just kind of common sense and logic, but then going through the actual experience of it, it's really good in that, because I think with a lot of campaigns that you're running for home games or whatnot, you're lucky if you meet every week, or if even if you're scheduled to meet every 2 weeks, you spend a lot of time catching people up. And with hardcore mode, it's like binge watching, a prestige television series. So you don't have a lot of, you don't need to actually waste a lot of time on reminding people what just happened, because it just happened.
Yeah.
But you also don't have, because you don't have a free period out of the 3 every day, you have to really enlist the players a lot to even just to build the terrain setups, or you have to delegate a lot of the little jobs, because if you try to do it all yourself, it's just, you will, even when you're doing everything correctly, you're not going to get 8 hours of sleep as a DM for it. So I'm very prepared for that, of just going into it being like, you have to, it's almost like kind of project management. I mean, the team, right. The D&D and the castle support staff really help out a lot with that, as far as like getting terrain setups ready for you, in advance, and then just bringing them to your room when they're ready to deploy. And I think this time I'm going to try to do primarily digital maps, which will be interesting. And I'll probably offer a lot of that on the fly flexibility. But you have no time to prep. Yeah, basically. Is you don't have any time to prep really in between,
Right.
You have a little bit after dinner before you have to go to sleep. But other than that, so I've learned that, and I think I was kind of daunted by doing it the first time, but I don't know, it may be my favorite version of the format, because I think I, like the players, I value my time at the castle so much, and I want to get as much value out of it as possible. And I think,
it's true. We do here just want more D&D. Can we just play D&D? I'm here to play D&D. Can we play more D&D? And I'm like, have you heard of hardcore mode? Because that is literally why we have this.
Yeah, and it is, I think, the best value at the castle as far as how much game time you're getting. Even when I go on, my own personal trips, to be like, well, if I'm paying $800 for airfare round trip, I better, really maximize my time on the ground. And I think the hardcore mode definitely is that,
Yeah. So and you've also run regular campaigns. I call them regular. I mean, they're still 8 hours a day. It's still that kind of round the clock play experience. A little more downtime, a little more recovery time, a little more prep time, and although people do go well over time in those campaigns. How is it different running D&D at D&D in the Castle versus running a home game? You mentioned, like, you don't have to spend so much time catching people up. Are there other things about this sort of residential format where you eat, sleep, roll dice? That's what we say is our motto, versus the home game. What are some of the differences?
I think there are emergent things that the players, because they're in the place and it's so special, or because they're talking to players from other games, or they're the activities that we've done with like the Night of Trials, or there being sort of things in the environment that can connect the games to each other. That's something that I in my own home games, my players are lucky if they ever meet each other, my different groups. But there's no reason why, you can't have a guest jump in from another person's campaign, or I know that there are DMs who have, combined final battles between some of their groups of two people approaching. I think a lot of those different emergent things, like there's the stone rituals and those sort of things that we do with people having ways to interact outside of the games and bring things into the games. And that's something that I could not do in my own home games. I need a team of people like you and everyone else to have all that stuff running, so you get those cool emergent things that happen from the different games interacting, of having that many people who are that into D&D in one place at the same time.
Yeah, and it's really a community that you're joining for the sort of week that you're at the castle, and it is a unique community in that it's small enough you can kind of know everybody by name, but big enough that it's exciting that everyone is there to just talk about D&D all day.
Yeah, and one thing I didn't realize when I started doing this back in 2019 was how many repeat guests we have. So they're ones who actually there are a lot of people who know how to get a lot out of the castle, and they meet new people and people they're going to game with in the future at the castle, or I've had players that I've met at the castle, and then they've come a subsequent time to be in one of my games, whether through hanging out with me or just word of mouth. They decided the next time they wanted to come, they wanted to play with me. And so, yeah, I think that's constantly happening, or sometimes they even have questions about the other DMs who, like I know I'm one of their peers, and they'll say, oh yeah, you'll absolutely love his game. He's incredible. Or, get into her game if you come next time, because, she's a rising star and it may be harder to.
Yeah, this might be your last chance.
this will be your easiest chance because she's going to blow up, so. Yeah.
Have you played with any of the other DMs at the castle?
I've played with some of them quite a lot. Like B-Dave and I did a bunch of streaming stuff together around about the time, we both started doing D&D in the castle. So yeah, I think there are a bunch of other people who I know from the streaming world, or from getting to hang out with them at conventions and stuff. There are definitely some people I'd love to play with more, who we have as fellow DMs at the castle, but it's all about finding time,
Yeah, no, it's true. It goes so fast. In fact, we were just discussing before this call that there's someone who's coming to 2 hardcore modes back to back at D&D in the castle. Any advice for that person? I know, or for people who might be thinking about that.
he is gonna sleep through the interim days between them. Although now you're offering workshops and stuff in between those. So
that's right. Yeah, we're doing bringing back in a new way something we did back in 2019, and even which was called Castle Days. So having just some extra time at the castle. That's based on player feedback, really, that they want a little more time. They come in, they hit the ground running, they go straight to D&D. They don't even go to their room. They go straight to their prologue, and then they go to their room, so they get that D&D need out of the way, so they can just relax for a minute before they get back to the table again. So, they hit the ground running with D&D. This is all this build up. They get to the castle, they just play D&D straight through, and then it's like, boom, and you go home. And it's such a cold shock. Like, it's like, it's hard. It's hard to go home from D&D in a castle. Like, just generally, there's no amount of time you could spend before it wouldn't be hard. But, that people can have a sort of easing out, or just an opportunity to kind of just hang out and chat with people and talk about what happened in their games and that kind of thing. And the other thing we've had people ask is, there's all this amazing talent at this castle, and we don't get to learn from them. We get to play with them in our game, but it would be so great to get to meet the other dungeon masters, hear from them, learn a little bit from them, benefit from the fact that there's more than just my one DM at the castle. So that's what we're doing, is offering people an opportunity to stay on and just book their room, and it's just room and food, and we'll have some workshops so people can have Q&As and learn a little bit and get to meet and get to know the other talent.
Yeah, I'm very excited about the Chronicle mode that you started doing with people. I just saw the stuff that for GM Tim's upcoming Chronicle mode, because he's great. If money or time were no object, I'd be in that Chronicle mode.
Yeah.
Signed up for it myself.
That's gonna be a lot of fun.
That's just amazing to be able to do 2 rounds, back to back, and have one story move continuously across. So. Because that is technically a minimum of 48 hours.
I was going to say, hardcore mode is deep and Chronicle mode is broad. So it just keeps going and you get all that time. And yeah, with Chronicle mode, you also get the days in between included in your ticket when you come for both. So that's going to be a lot of fun as well. How did your last Chronicle mode, your last hardcore mode, how did it go? How was it compared to what you expected? I mean, we talked a little bit about it, but
I was pretty nervous about it because I had the creator of the format as a player in my group, and Mike is very demanding as a player, and so I wanted to make sure, and in some ways I think difficult to impress, because of his experience in both running and being in a lot of these sort of games. But when it really started to click and it was really working and people were just super into it, we were both kind of looking at each other and we're like, yes, this is working. This is how this format works. And I think we got a lot of insights into, both from him, doing it, and then him seeing it from a player perspective and seeing how much of this is something that you can have a different DM do every time, or is it something just kind of endemic to what he was doing. And I think he saw that a lot of the things could be, carried across from one person to the next. By the end, I think, I did have people, who would say that, like, this is the best game of D&D that I've ever been in, so. Yeah. All right.
It was obviously successful because we had you back.
Yeah.
We invited you to do it again. So people clearly liked it. And there were 5 people signed up for the campaign. There's one spot if somebody's interested in joining and filling out that last space in the party with Alcuin this fall. What advice do you have for anybody who's looking at joining either your hardcore mode or any other hardcore mode, or coming to D&D in a Castle, even if not hardcore mode, because you've done both? What advice would you have to people thinking about coming to D&D in a Castle?
I think there's a misconception too about like what the hardcore mode is and what kind of player it attracts and what sort of experience you're going to have. There isn't any kind of macho, toxic positive element to it, when it comes to what your expectation is of your level of experience. It's really just more hours in the chair, So if you're the kind of person who is, just can't wait until the next session, then you're a good fit for it. I don't think that you have to be somebody who knows a ton about D&D. In fact, a lot of the players that I have in my games, they have a clearer view of the rules of, whether that's, 5th edition or even historically older games than that. You don't have to know the rules better than me. And if you do, that's still also fine. There are many times that we kind of crowdsource remembering is like, okay, so this is the way the second level of exhaustion works, right? Or like, okay, this is a contested roll because it's this versus this, and like we collectively know, so you're not expected to have a minimum level of knowledge. It's not advanced Dungeons and Dragons or anything like that.
It's not advanced Dungeons and Dragons, and it's not advanced Dungeons and Dragons. Either.
So don't be scared off by the name. If I think people can see that it's hardcore and assume that it's just we're kind of trying to outdo ourselves as far as extremes. I think when you do have a game that is that demanding of people, especially if it gets demanding emotionally, as things start to resolve themselves, we do a lot of checking in with each other. I think the safety tools and just assessing honestly, like how tired are people, like, yes, we could push on and do this and that, but like, will that be a good use of our time, or should we call it here? I don't think that there's anybody that's being kind of pressured to go places they don't want to, or not have the space they need to process stuff or those sort of things. But and it's fun. I mean, I know I've said it's dark, but we do goof around a certain amount too.
I mean, you can't not. You can't not. The story might be dark, but the people in the room also are
Yeah.
just people hanging out playing a game for fun. So something that I've been pleasantly surprised to discover, I don't know about surprised, but it's just been a pleasant discovery, is just how incredibly supportive people are in this environment. You know,
Oh,
if you've
yeah.
talked to them before, you might wonder, like, is this going to be a bunch of rules lawyering and people trying to be more D&D than the next person, which is just hilarious, but that could be a thing. But you know, that people are, there are new players there, and actually that the new players or the newer players are actually like beloved, you know.
Oh, yeah.
That
Oh, yeah.
everybody is like, let me help you, let me talk to you, let me show you. They're so passionate, and they're just so excited, and they're excited to share and to be there and to help each other and support each other. And I think that's true of the players, and it's true of the DMs too. Like, I hear so many stories about, oh, I wasn't sure what to do, and I talked to this person and they gave me all this help and they helped me do this. And you know, that people are there as a community, like supporting and helping each other. And they're, you know, it's because people are investing in this not cheap holiday, this you know, bucket list experience, and just knowing that everyone is there to make this great for you. It's really nice. It's really nice as an organizer to know that too.
Yeah, I'm a very neurodivergent person, and I've had a spectrum of other neurodivergent people in my games. And I've had players who, you know, kind of came with, you know, some extra needs, you know, in order to make sure that they have a good experience, or, you know, warnings of like, hey, if I'm being disruptive, you let me know, you know. But honestly, I feel like the players always come together around that and make sure that everybody has the best experience, you know, no matter how, you know, no matter where you are on that spectrum. I think that that's one of the things I really notice about a lot of the players. And in fact, at my first D&D in the Castle in 2019, I don't think I had any player deaths in the final encounters, because try as I might, I just could not. They were all playing characters with good support abilities, and their communication was also good, and they had locked into their chemistry over 3 days. Great. And try as I might, I just couldn't get any of them down. I just couldn't do it.
So you weren't punching any rolls, but they were just being really good at the playing of the game.
They were just really good at being friends and playing D&D, and I found that super rewarding. I didn't feel defeated at all, but we all absolutely loved it. But
the power of friendship can save lives, Alcuin.
Yeah,
it's true.
Yeah, so this is a good time.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I echo what you're saying. People, we talk about the caliber of the castle and the DMs and all of the experience, but for honestly, the players that I've had over the years are really what make the castle experience what it is. You know,
and a lot of them they make lifelong friendships there too. Like I know a lot of people that are still in touch, that they're like, oh, you live in my area, let's play D&D together. Let's connect. They've been brought each other to each other's weddings. You know, like it's a real friendship hub, which is really lovely. Alcuin, we're coming to the end of our time. I'm going to invite you to invite the viewers to come and play in your game and take your last spot at hardcore mode, or to just come to D&D in the Castle this fall, November 4th to 8th. And before you do that, I'm just going to let people know, up in the corner of the screen, you can see a little QR code that if you want to check out Alcuin or check out his game, you can click there. You can also read up on all our Dungeon Masters, all of our campaigns that are being offered at the castle, and about the event itself. And if you have any questions, there's a chat feature on there, which is monitored by real life people. And if we miss you, we'll follow up by email. So do come and talk to us and ask us all of your questions. I'm going to pass it off to Alcuin to invite you to come and join us at the castle.
Yeah, I mean, please come join us. If not, you know, with me at my hardcore table, one of our other incredible dungeon masters. And you know, when I first started doing this, I wasn't comfortable selling this as like, this is the game of a lifetime. But with the level of experience and the things I've seen from my own game and other people's games, I think at this point I can comfortably promise that you will have a life-changing experience at D&D in a Castle. The level of immersion and just the joy and connection that you'll feel in your game and with the other players will be unsurpassed until the next time you come to the castle or until you implement all of the lessons you've learned from the experience in your home games. So I think it's something that, I think, is also a great value, is something you can't really put a price tag on as far as the level of the experience. So please come and enjoy it. It's not too late to join my game. We're just starting to talk about everybody's characters and how everything interconnects. The prep for the game is as fun as the game itself. So we're already in a way playing right now. And if that's the case, we look forward to seeing you soon.
Wonderful. And we'll see you all at the castle. Thank you so much for joining us, Alcuin.
Thank you.